Hello everybody, it is Sunday. I believe this would put us on the 21st of April. 2 days ago I sifted these castings and worms and they were really improving. So I don't want to go to an extreme to where they get too dry. So today I'm just going to do a quick sift, check in, see how they're doing, how the worms in there, where they're at, but it's really improved. There's a whack of worms in here. There's a lot of worms in these castings. Anybody that is harvesting their castings and wondering if it's worth it to try to save the worms that are in it and the cocoons, I think it is. Just get a bucket here that we can put all the overs in. There's a schwack of worms. And I see cocoons in there also, but there's a lot of worms and there's a lot of small worms. So this separating these castings, I think it's really worth it. I really do. So I'm just going to skim off the top as best I can right now because that'll be the driest stuff. The stuff on the bottom will likely be a little more moist. And just with every, just look at all of the worms. I'm not sure you can see them, but I sure can. And there is so many worms in here. So this won't take long because we only have this one bin left. And I'm really kind of hoping that one of these days I'm done with it because well, let's face it, I'm getting to the time when we're going to go farming and the outdoor projects now, I should probably get at them because get them started. Like I want to do the windrow thing and I want to get that started so it has a chance to heat already. Look at the worms. This corner is just loaded with them, and along the edge and over here and over here. There's 100 worms in here. So my whole worm farm started at 250 worms, as anybody that's been following me knows. So I'm saying there's as many worms, if not more worms, in these castings than I started my worm farm with. Worms in Canada are expensive. Our friends in the US have a little better pricing down there from what I see. One of the big problems up here is we can't get worms shipped very well in cold climates. So from like October to now, like April, most of the suppliers will not ship. So okay, look at these guys. A lot of worms in here. So on this size screen, when you tap the screen and the worms are caught in it, it kind of ticks them off and they let loose and they fall through. So and it cleans the screen off. local neighbors, well, not really local in my town, but the next town over, she has worms. We went for a supper last night, and she knows I have worms. I'm actually the one that put a bug in her ear to get them. And she's like, what do I do now? What do I do now? We might be doing a local class here. If we can get all our local weird worm people together. And take an hour or so and do something for people to have a quick learning time with worms in this local area. It might be just me and her. I don't know. It'd be okay. Whack of worms in here. Like, it just doesn't do it justice on the camera, but there's worms from that size to that size to smaller to still cocoons hatching. So absolutely it's worth collecting your castings, and it's worth trying to get your worms out of your castings before you send your castings off to do something else, right? Absolutely it is. Like, if I've got 500 young worms in there, which is not going to be very heavyweight, but when I got my worms, they were supposed to be breeder size worms. And they said it was 1/4 of a pound, which I wouldn't doubt. Maybe it was a little heavier, but there wasn't many worms in that bucket. Like, so all right. Lots of worms. Like, and actually lots of worms still in the castings. Not as many as over there, but quite a few. Quite a few. Wind's coming up here, starting to shake the house again. We've had a lot of wind in the last week, and real not nice winds. Is it empty? Might be a spent cocoon. Yeah, it feels pretty empty. There's a lot of worms in here, in this still. So, just for giggles, I'm going to send this through one more time and just see if I can show people how many worms Okay, so look, Worm, 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 worm. And there's not very many in here compared to what went in here. So this is just kind of plain, but probably overloaded my sieve. I did. I should have done that in a couple of buckets. A couple different screenfuls. A couple hundred worms in here. They're small, but there's lots of them. So maybe not a couple hundred, but at least 100, 150. And that's why we do it, to get the worms back out. And yeah, there's still going to be worms in here, but there's not as many now. All right. Just back over here. Up there. And this over here. So I'm going to demonstrate to you my technique about how to pull the worms out of this bin without doing the, so there, you just kind of, you come up to them, you let them get on you a little bit, so that's what they do. Sometimes you loosen them off the plastic and then they'll bounce out. But if you just wipe them, you will crush those little worms. And we don't want to crush them. And here's one over here. And he's caught up in the mud. It's on the bin. Come on. See. Just take your time when there's like 10 or 15 or so. And you'll get them. Remember, 10 worms in a year equates to a lot of worms. Because every 3 months, your population will double. So in 3 months, 10 would be 20. In 6 months, 20 would be 40. In 9 months, 40 would be 80. And I'll be honest with you, I think that's quite conservative. Because once they start to increase, it's like there's a population explosion. Takes a little while to get them going, but once they do, they're very, very, very active. So when there's just a few on the plastic, I basically just do that. And so you can see a lot of worms, and there's still a lot of viable cocoons in here that are hatching. A lot of worms in there. In that handful, there's quite a few. So we're gaining on our castings, and just for giggles, there's a bunch there. I'm going to take them and put them in here, and you can grab them 3 and 4 at a time. It's worth just grabbing them and moving them. So some might say, well, you know, that's not very much castings. Why don't you just get over it and get it done? There's enough castings in there to make probably a 5-gallon bucket or more of worm tea. Now a 5-gallon bucket of worm tea turns into 50 gallons of applied product at 10 to 1. All right. Here's our storage bin. And I'm glad I went to this bigger storage bin. Those little bins were really not a good way of storing a large amount of castings, because they just compacted like really bad. And they were too wet. And in those small bins, they really just turned to mud in the bottom of the little bins. They're good for transporting or selling, but they're not. And I'm not selling any castings. But, and I mean, I got some. This is some really nice stuff here now. It's been paid attention to and processed to the point where we can work with it. The moisture's almost perfect, I would say. And I just want to keep it mixed so that it doesn't start compacting. So I believe this was a... How many liters is this thing? This is a 35 gallon, 120 liter bucket, and it's a third full. So there's more than a third in here. A little over a third, probably a third. I'll guarantee you won't lift it if you fill it. You'd never lift this much heavy stuff. But how do you like that? Pretty nice stuff. Just gonna cover it back up. Leave the air get to it. Air is a big thing. If your stuff doesn't get air, it's going to go anaerobic. And you don't want that. So see, we're down to a half a bucket of this wonderful bunch of worms and stuff that needs to be separated. So we're making her. It's getting there. So if you like what we're doing, I know it's pretty repetitive. I've been doing this for just about a month now with castings and stuff, but it's just that time of year. But if you like what we're doing, and maybe you want to join us, if you're new, hit the subscribe button. Comments. Love comments. It's been a quiet week for comments, but it's springtime and people are busy, and I understand. But I love the comments. Comments are a riot sometimes. Yeah, give us a thumbs up and smash the subscribe button and the notification bell. Get notified when we do some new stuff. And I hope everybody is having a great weekend. This is Sunday here, so I'm gonna go do some outside chores and maybe see if I can get some stuff done on the chicken coop. It's warmed up a bit, but the wind's coming up. So anyway, first I can work in the wind as long as you're not dealing with great big sheets. That's it for today. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one.